This presentation's generally directed at homeschool debate students considering a topic on ocean or marine natural resources. The title is Building Your Home at Sea. I'm excited about the topic, and I wanted to just suggest some areas I think would be interesting in developing marine resources. There's an example from overseas. Here is marine natural resource development in Dubai. Dubai is one of the countries in the United Arab Emirates which actually has the least amount of oil. In response to that, the country looked for other ways to stay wealthy. They decided to open up their economy, basically set up a free enterprise system, lower trade barriers, and to allow development. So the Palms is a major development out in the shallow water off the coast where apartments, condominiums, hotels are built, and marinas are there. And so it's an area that created massive amounts of wealth by allowing people to build housing in a marine environment, shallow water. We have examples like that in other places as well. Here's after the success of the Palms, this came in the real estate boom in the early 2000s. They decided to develop an entire ocean world or sea world. They had islands in the shape of the world and let people buy land in these different little islands. So you can see the map of them there. This development didn't go as well as might have, partly because of the enthusiasm built and then the crash came. So people that invested in islands saw their property values go down dramatically. Only one place was built. You can see it on the edge of Greenland, that little dot there. And it turned out that the financial crisis hurt prices, plus the ocean or the sea started to lead to the islands sinking and silting up between the islands. So the advantage of it's sort of hard to build a natural ecosystem in an unnatural way. So you can see the one place it's built. It looks nice, but I'm sure the owner is unhappy to be all alone in the world. Similar examples from the United States. So just as Dubai is building out into the ocean, San Francisco, Oakland, and Berkeley, and San Jose and Redwood City built out into the San Francisco Bay. In the booming times of the 60s, the various cities looked to fill in mud flats and develop in different areas. 1962, the city of Berkeley announced plans in this article to double the physical size of the town by building out 4,000 acres that the city owned in the bay. Before they could do that, a group of university wives, they're called in this article, got together and formed the Save San Francisco Bay Association. And they basically politically fought the idea of bringing in landfill to allow more development, business and housing development into the bay. So this is a debate that heats up around the country, particularly strong in San Francisco and Oakland, where environmentalists were a strong force. So San Francisco Airport builds out into the wetlands, into the mudflats, as does Oakland Airport. City of Richmond looks like planned to build out and to fill thousands of tidal acres to expand its industrial base. Then there was a proposal to build an entire separate parallel freeway 2 miles out to the east of Highway 101. So there'd be two parallel freeways, which would have, of course, dramatically decreased traffic congestion, or at least allowed higher traffic capacity. And there would have been 2 miles of land to build on in that area. So that plan, and it was supposed to go on the bay side of San Francisco Airport and go into San Francisco. So these development proposals ran sort of flat up against the environmental movement. The environmental movement was trying to preserve ecosystems, sort of freeze them in place, prevent new development. And is that good or bad? Well, people who would have had their views destroyed, which are mostly rich people, were happy to save the views that they had of the ocean. Just like the people that live in Malibu, in Santa Barbara, they don't want drilling for oil off the coast because they're afraid that they'd look at oil derricks, and even if they were beyond the horizon, the idea that they would there would be offensive to some. So this article complains that they were planning to lop the top off the San Bruno mountain and put that into the the bay to build the Highway 101 parallel extension. Interesting, this would have created wealth, housing, business, good things, but the trade-off, it would have decreased the size of San Francisco Bay and would have had negative consequences. So you find this activist environmentalists who want to save the ecological balance of the bay, as they call it. But it's important to note that there's tremendous amount of development that's gone on already. And as a debater, you want to look at how we best decide how to use ecosystems. If we say, look, you can't build in the bay, or you shouldn't build in the waters off Dubai because that disrupts the natural ecosystem. Well, sure, but so does building on land. So does building in a valley. So does building in a forest. All these uses change the ecosystem. That's what man does. Where do you draw the line? Groups like the Nature Conservancy argue that there are some ecosystems that are very ecologically diverse and have special appeal. And they use the strategy of going to the farmers involved, or the landowners, and explaining to them why there is a unique marine or land ecosystem that's worth preserving, and trying to convince them, persuade them. The other alternative Nature Conservancy does is they buy the property. Environmentalists are very concerned about saving unique resources, so they put their money in it and buy that land. There's plenty of land that is not particularly uniquely ecologically valuable. So the idea is to try and sort out which things are best preserved to preserve habitat, and which things can be developed with low impact and maximum value. So you see this debate in San Francisco, and you see it through much of the country as this aspect of marine resources. Here's an article from recently on Emeryville residents' challenge development plan. Emeryville is just north of Oakland on the East Bay, and I've stayed there a number of times. It's a pretty area. It's a nice area, but this is a flight I flew recently out of Oakland Airport, and here is a photograph of Emeryville, of part of Emeryville. This is a pier that goes way out into San Francisco Bay. There's a huge marina there. There's a giant apartment complex where my friend Steve used to live. There's hotels there I've stayed in. It's beautiful to jog out there, ride bikes, look around out there. And there's a number of these piers, but they're all artificial. You know, they weren't naturally there. They were filled in over time. They were intrusions into the natural marine ecosystem, but they bring a lot of value and pleasure to the thousands, tens of thousands of people who live in these areas. So then the question is, why do we allow these but not allow new ones? Or should we tear these down and send it back to nature? So those decisions, I think, are part of the marine natural resources for human habitation and development. Here is a view from Google Maps of Fremont and San Jose. And in the middle of it, you can see the areas that are shallow lands, mud flats, salt flats. It's called the Baylands, and there's a wilderness reserve or wildlife reserve, open source. But these are all owned by the cities and the states. It's not private property, and it's not allowed to be developed. And maybe that's the way you want it. Maybe that's perfect. But it's a choice that someone has made politically, and to not allow development. In fact, I stay in the Fremont area regularly, and there's just a tremendous amount of land. I think was originally a landfill, dump, and so forth that's filled in, but now it's just empty. And I don't know that there's wilderness there, but there's no people there. Is that the best way to have those resources developed that are on the edge of the ocean? Here's the close-up view, and you can sort of see it. You can look at it with satellite view and see the different areas. As you fly over it, you can see the salt drying that they use that land for. But I simply ask, here's California that is careening toward bankruptcy, and the highest housing prices in the country. People can't live in these areas unless they're wealthy, usually, because the real estate prices are so high. Why not allow more people to live in these areas? Why not allow developments to take place in ways that are ecologically sensitive? Could you set aside some of the land for development and others to restore to pristine ecological state? Here's a closer up view, and you can see the the different pieces of property. Again, these are, and you can see where the people are. The people are crowded together around them, but they're not allowed to develop these areas. It's a choice people make. Is it the right choice? The market system generally has private property rights. They let land be owned by private individuals, by companies, by nonprofit organizations. People can choose whether they want to preserve the system for a park or an ecosystem that's a wilderness area, or whether they want people to live on it. But if you let the rich people that already have their houses decide to stop development everywhere else, that doesn't seem fair for people that aren't yet rich or that have to pay unusually high prices. Here's a view flying out of John Wayne Airport in Newport Beach just a couple months ago. This is a marine area. I'm not sure the name of this, but you can see the development here. They've basically taken land that was mud flats and sandy and basically built it up to housing, marinas, ports. And if you're maybe an environmentalist, you could say, gosh, this was so much better before when it was pristine and natural. But there's a lot of people that live here and really enjoy living here. There's tax revenue that goes to the state, there's jobs, there's businesses. It's not clear to me that this is bad, and the view that we just had of the areas around San Jose are good. It's not clear how you decide that. Again, the normal system we have in this country is for private or for people, companies to own land and make decisions on how best it should be used. We have huge numbers of of privately owned parks in the country, as well as government-run parks. Okay, moving on to science fiction sorts of things. You can have science fiction in space, but also science fiction on Earth. Here is a dwelling. Looks, I'm not sure what it is, but it's got a helipad on there for helicopters. It's out in the ocean someplace. People live underneath and people live above. But the idea is people could live not only on the edge of the water in the salt flats or landfill areas, they could also live out in the ocean. They can live in structures that are built in shallow water or structures that are floating in deeper water. You can go to the Seasteading Institute, seasteading.org, and you can see some of their proposals for building what they argue is the next frontier of human civilization in the ocean. This, in a sense, is related to the charter city movement, the idea of that Paul Romer and others have of getting agreement from a government to have a set area of their country become a chartered city with an independent legal system, much like Hong Kong was chartered from, was part of England and had its independent charter, and as did Singapore. Hong Kong and Singapore became really the wealthiest areas in the world, partly because they had a separate charter that protected them from nation states like China and their various policies. Similarly, in Europe, you have Monaco, you have Andorra, other sort of charter cities that have low taxes and relatively open system and have created tremendous wealth. So Seasteading Institute says, let's build our own city in the ocean, and investors can buy property, they can sign contracts and charters to become a part of it. Taxes can be zero, taxes can be low, but let people make those decisions on where to live rather than be stuck under the older systems now on land. There's other aspects to this. There's business operations to do in the ocean of various kinds. You can look on the website and find out more. But this is an example of building civilizations at sea, and to what extent, for example, could the affirmative on a marine resources case argue for charter cities, let's say outside U.S. islands in the Pacific, Marshall Islands, Mariana Islands somewhere, or off the coast in the United States, where a charter could be granted for an area that would be close to land but independent. Lots of opportunities.